Hello, and welcome to The Queer Gaze, a gay movie podcast dedicated to examining queer representation and issues.
We're on to our second entry in the sports gaze theme with Irish rugby film Handsome Devil. If you want to hear more of the discussion, including our Chili Pepper Award, please support The Queer Gaze at patreon.com/thequeergaze.
You'll also get early access to regular main feed episodes and extra content for every single episode.
And you can follow us on social media at The Queer Gaze.
Indeed you can. So, Conrad, we're going to try another rugby film. Did you see what I did there?
I see what you did, yes. Yeah, and I forgot to bring a note from my mother again.
No, I'm sorry. You're just going to have to play ball. So tell me, what is Handsome Devil about?
Well, Handsome Devil is a 2017 coming-of-age dramedy, if you like that word.
I don't mind it.
Yes, I don't mind it. From Irish writer-director John Butler. In a rugby-obsessed all-boys boarding school somewhere in a lush green island, Ned, played by Fionn O'Shea, a lanky redhead with a suede poster and a persecution complex, is forced to room with Connor, played by red, white and royal blues Nicholas Galitzine, a closeted rugby prodigy who confronts his identity by punching people in the face.
Truly, yeah.
Encouraged by cool new English teacher Mr. Sherry, a pre-Fleabag Andrew Scott, to find their unique selves, the odd couple bond over their guitars and the shared horror of being vaguely interesting in a school that prizes uniformity. It premiered at TIFF in 2016 and was the winner of multiple festival awards, and has since been praised for its cardigan-wearing warmth and earnest message.
Okay. I can't entirely disagree with that, because this is a bit of a comfort movie watch, isn't it?
It is. It's a Sunday afternoon with a cup of tea and a biscuit type of movie, I would say.
Oh my God, you're so British.
I know. Yeah, and this film is very British. I mean, obviously, obligatory mention of Heartstopper. This really does feel like Heartstopper.
Yeah. It's kind of focusing on innocents who have this fraught relationship, but you know that they're going to be okay, even as it feels like the whole world is kind of against them. But, with rugby in the mix, only this time Ned doesn't play. For some reason, I had a vague memory of him actually being involved in the team, and maybe it was the heartstopper of it all.
Yes, maybe. Although, interestingly, they never quite come together, do they? Because one of them is on the rugby team and the other one does not join, although he does cheer from the side.
Yeah.
Also, they get entered into a talent competition to sing a duet over their guitars, and that doesn't happen. And when he does it, he's rubbish at it, Ned. So, I guess it does sort of have some surprises in store for people who are thinking it's going to be completely formulaic.
Yeah, no, I think at the end of the day, this is a movie that doesn't live and die based on its plot mechanics. If anything, the warm fuzzies come from just the low stakes, and I think the performances are uniformly really, really good. Like, I really enjoy both of the leads, as well as obviously Andrew Scott. Although, as you mentioned, this is Andrew Scott before he becomes Andrew Scott. And I had A, completely forgotten he was even in this, and B, forgotten that he was playing a queer character, because at the time I did not realize he was a gay man.
No, I didn't realize that until relatively recently, ridiculously.
It's basically when he gets super famous, that's when everybody's like, oh, and he's a big old mo. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, he's rather marvellous in this, but he's rather marvellous in everything, isn't he, really?
Yeah.
Although he is basically playing Robin Williams' character in Dead Poets Society, which every reviewer has mentioned, as you've pointed out. This is sort of a rugby movie, and then it's got just a little helping of Dead Poets Society on the side.
Yeah, thankfully without the tragedy, nobody dies in this movie, so we don't have to worry about that. But yeah, it's definitely aspirational faculty member who comes in and kind of unlocks the potential, helps the outsider to fit in, helps people to realize that they can be better and they should be better. And And I think that's part of the reason it's a comfort watch is because it does have that almost formulaic, familiar feel to it, even if it is, like, oh, it's Irish, and that's lovely and a little bit different as well.
Yeah, although I do find its treatment of queer identity and experience alongside just this general vague idea of conformity overall. I find that a little bit disingenuous and a little
Hmm.
bit feeble. It waters down the impact of the film because it kind of just smushes the two together and doesn't see any difference between them. And worrying about conformity just feels so teenage, doesn't it?
It really does. Yes. You have to accept that at its heart, this is a young adult text. So, as I
Mm.
said, the stakes are pretty low. And in part, that's because when you're a teenager, everything feels incredibly heightened. Everything is the end of the world. And this movie definitely leans into that for its characters. But as an adult viewer, you're kind of like, hey, everybody, just come out. It's not going to be that big of a deal.
Yeah, although it's played as though it will be a big deal. I mean, Andrew Scott has a very moving scene where he's just staring at the main character who is queer, and or at least that we know of is queer, with
Right.
tears brimming on the edges of his eyes, is saying, "It gets better, it gets better." And I'm sorry, looking at him and the fact that he is still closeted and terrified of losing his job,
Hmm.
I don't get the sense that it does get better.
No. And to be honest, that was somewhere between my tip of the shade and lip service award that we're going to talk about on the Patreon. But I think that that moment, that scene between Mr. Sherry and then Connor is really quite excellent. But also, I think it's almost the character telling on himself in a very significant way.
Yes, I think it is, and I suppose it works on that level. Although I did wonder about just the sheer terror that everybody seems to have, because I remembered this movie as being a 90s movie, oddly enough.
It feels like a 90s movie. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
really does. It feels like a different era for teenagers coming to terms with their sexuality, and certainly adults being terrified of being thrown out of their jobs. I think in 2017 looks a little bit regressive and out of touch. And I think it's probably a reflection of writer director John Butler's own personal experience because he is an out gay writer director,
Okay.
but only quite late in life was
Ah,
he able to come to terms with his own sexuality. So I think he is talking about his own experience, which was from the 80s. I think this is a slightly autobiographical film. He certainly went to an all Catholic, all boys rugby obsessed boarding school. So it might not be a direct like for like thing, but he's certainly drawing from his own experience. And I think that's why it feels like it's from a different era.
right. Question for you. Would you take this all, like, would this all work better for you if this was actually a period film then?
It would, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. I can't disagree with you because I don't know. I mean, even as I say this, we don't live in a country that's actively looking to take away people's rights. Well, okay, no, let me walk even that back because you live in a country that recently took back trans rights by not acknowledging that they exist.
Yeah.
But we are in this weird period where it feels like we're regressing in terms of protecting queer identities and queer livelihoods. So I can't disagree with you that it feels like, oh, this is not a timely piece. I don't know a lot of faculty members who are afraid of losing their jobs because they identify as queer in their personal lives. And yet we have kind of come full circle, and that moment is back for a lot of people. So, in some ways, this feels like a very old fashioned problem while also feeling remarkably current now.
Yeah, it's true. So I guess things just go in cycles,
Yep.
unfortunately.
Yeah, the good and the bad, right? If you look at it this way, it means that the good times will also come around again. So, everybody, don't lose faith. Keep your head up. Just keep living because our time will come around again.
It gets better.
It, oh my God, how dare you? Okay, well, let's talk about this central relationship because I'll confess I don't know Fionn O'Shea from anything else, but I gathered he's played queer roles a couple of times. And then we know for sure that Galitzine has played queer, as you mentioned, in Red, White, and Royal Blue. And I really enjoy these two performances. I think that there's a good chemistry, albeit not a sexual chemistry. Like, you just believe in the friendship between these two boys who just feel like they don't fit in.
Yeah, it's interesting to see Fionn O'Shea playing 16 at the age of 19 in 2016, and then recently in dating Amber at the age of 24.
Playing the same teenager.
Playing the same teenager. That one's quite an interesting one as well. That's two queer characters who decide to pretend that they're dating each other.
Okay, like a lavender marriage only for teenagers.
Exactly, yeah, and
Okay.
it's that's interesting. That's a twist I hadn't seen, and I quite enjoyed that. But again, I think that's a period piece
Okay.
in order to justify the reality, the pressure that it's trying to put on the characters. But
Right.
yeah, he's a fine actor, and I think because he is quite a slight build,
Mm-hmm.
it means that he gets to play young or younger than his actual age for longer.
Right.
He's instantly likable as the main character who is narrating as well. So yeah, you're in his head.
Yeah, not gonna lie. I've watched a couple of movies with not always great voiceover in the last couple of weeks. This one, I'm not gonna say is terrible, but I don't know how much the movie actually benefits from its voiceover bracketing narrative device. I just don't know that I love movies that end with kind of aspirational speech deliveries, even if it is him realizing, oh, I could be a member of the debate club or, go and read my English paper and try to win the school £5,000.
Yeah, which is his final achievement. I understand that. Yeah, I'm not sure it does tell you an awful lot that you couldn't glean from just watching the movie. Although I think there are places where you might misunderstand what's going on if you didn't have that interior monologue.
Yeah. Question for you, because I feel like the most interesting part of this movie is the fact that it never clarifies how Ned defines himself in terms of his sexual orientation. And I think that that's really fascinating. I'm not going to say it's brave, but it feels unconventional. Like, typically in movies, you would say, oh, well, I'm the person who is being bullied for being queer. And then the person would say, I'm not queer. And the closest that this movie gets is him standing up in front of everybody when they're supposed to be preparing for their big sing along for the rugby match to come. And he says, let me tell you who is queer. He doesn't say, I'm not queer.
No, he doesn't, even though Connor asks him outright
Yeah.
during the initial awkward meet cute phase of this burgeoning friendship. Yeah, and he does not answer, which is, curious. You never really find out. And the posters on his wall don't give you any clue either, because I mentioned he has a suede poster on his bedroom wall, and that
Yeah.
famously is androgynous in terms of the coupling that are kissing in that
Yeah.
poster. So, yeah, they don't give you any cues really, which is, yeah, it's intriguing for sure. Although it does make me feel as though there's a missed opportunity there, because I would quite like to see a movie about two young gay people meeting in a difficult environment and
And not
not
falling in love.
being in love with each other. Yeah, I think that would be quite unique.
I don't understand, Conrad. How would it work? If two queer men meet each other, they must fall in love and they must fuck. It's how the world has to work.
Yeah, that's right. Yes.
No, I agree with you. I mean, I think there's an interesting opportunity to tell a kind of story where it's like, well, we both like men, but we're not attracted to each other because, yeah, ha ha, folks, I made a joke, but I've met a bunch of gay men that I don't want to sleep with because they're just not my type, or we don't have that kind of bond for whatever reason. And I think that that's more common than we'd maybe care to admit, but also just within the rules of conventional storytelling, you're not going to introduce two queer characters and then no other queer characters, but not have them hook up. Right. Just kind of
No.
defies logic.
Well, true, and in fact, that makes this film a friendship story rather
Yeah.
than a love story. Which, yeah, it should be applauded for that. I think there is space for that.
Although, even as we say this, there is this one moment where Ned kind of storms up to where Connor is drinking heavily with his rugby lads. And he basically says, I'm going to do this to save our friendship. I'm going to prove that our friendship is real. And part of me was like, remove the word friendship and replace it with something else. And the scene plays almost the exact same.
It does, yeah. I think it's almost as though they wanted to make a romance, but just didn't want to quite go there. And I'm not
Yeah.
sure whether this, in and of itself, says a lot more about the director's journey than it
Yeah.
does about the movie.
Well, and we're going to talk at length about the end of this film when we hop over to Patreon, because to me that is the least satisfying and most troubling slash problematic aspect of this movie. Is as much as it is a comfort watch and it is lovely and enjoyable, I on this rewatch actively hated the end of this movie.
Yeah.
Like, I found it unacceptable. And I couldn't believe that I had fond memories of how this all ended, because it's not satisfying.
No, one character says something that made me want to throttle him.
So, folks, if you want to hear more of that, you will have to give us your $3, because that is the price of admission to listen to the Patreon bonus of this, as well as all of the other episodes that we have released. But, okay, maybe before we transition over to that, Conrad, do you have any other thoughts on the performances? We haven't talked about Nicholas Galitzine. Do you find him convincing as a closeted queer boy?
Absolutely, yeah. And as a rugby kid
Well, yeah.
who's slightly posh in an Irish school, yeah, I totally bought that.
Okay. I remember thinking that he was very cute and that he seemed very introverted on a kind of self-destructive path. Like, I could actually see this movie becoming a tragedy with his journey, because he does seem just so unhappy with himself. And I'm not going to say that it's refreshing that we have a queer character who is closeted, who expresses themselves through violence, but it also feels a little unconventional. Like, usually you would have somebody who maybe imbibes too much, or they get hooked on drugs or something like that to quell the urges and the pain that they're feeling. And I kind of thought that it was interesting that, you know, the explanation we get is that he got kicked out of schools because anytime somebody said, "You're gay," he would go and punch them in the face.
Yeah, he would sort of overcorrect in the toxic masculinity to prove his straightness.
Yeah. So I don't know. That felt a little bit different from some of the other more conventional narratives that we have seen. But
Yeah.
it's also weird because I think at the end of the day, the movie begins as though it's going to explore a dual protagonists. And ultimately, this really is Ned's movie. Like, Connor is there, but it's not as much his story.
No, we don't even resolve his story particularly, I don't think.
Yeah.
But I do like the way that the film explores different types of queer experience. So in much the same way as the previous movie that we watched in the rugby quiz series.
Yes. In from the side.
In from the side, yeah. So, and that was something that John Butler was particularly keen on, that one of the things that gave him such difficulty in terms of coming to terms with his own identity is the fact that he is crazy about football, as it turns out, not rugby.
Okay.
And could not see himself in femme queers or hairy bears or any. He couldn't see himself in any of the cliched images of queerness that he grew up with in the 80s.
Right. Okay.
And thus struggled to find his own place in the world. So yeah, I guess it's good to see different representations of this experience.
Yeah. Again, I think it would all just maybe play a little bit better if the film was set in an earlier time period, because by 2017, I mean, the concept of queer sports enthusiasts is not that much of a novelty anymore.
No, it's not. And also mocking your classmates as being queer by making a Kenneth Williams noise. Yes, exactly. In 2017, I bet if I canvassed a bunch of school kids about who Kenneth Williams was, they would draw a blank.
It's a dated reference, for sure.
Really
For sure.
dated.
To the point where I didn't actually know that's what the reference was. I thought that they'd come up with a unique noise to be like, well, we hear that, think of gay.
No, it's Kenneth.
Okay. Good to know. You know what? The North American learning something every day.
Indeed. And on that bombshell.
Right? Yes. Okay. Well, I feel like we're having to start dancing around the conversation we actually want to have about the bullying in the end of this film. So we'll wrap up our main feed discussion here. If you want to join us over on Patreon, it's patreon.com/thequeergaze. And yeah, if you do not care to give us a couple of extra dollars, then you can just come back here in a couple of weeks. And folks, we will be talking about a football movie, but North American football, because we're going to talk about the game where you can actually throw the ball forward instead of just sideways or backwards. And we'll look at the 2023 film Riley.
My turn to be confused.
All right. Well, until then, feel free to reach out. We can be reached at thequeergazeshow@gmail.com or, on most of the socials, as we said, at The Queer Gaze.
Please do.